say welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the inaugural Badger Midget Auto Racing Association Hall of Fame induction ceremony. My name is... Thank you. My name is Robbie Ray, and I am fortunate enough to be the 2017 Badger Midget Auto Racing Association champion, current member of the Badger Board of Directors, and serve on the inaugural Hall of Fame nominating committee. Before we begin the ceremony, we want to thank the many people who made this wonderful event today possible. First, we want to thank Brad Weber and Lyco Manufacturing and all those who donated for the beautiful Hall of Fame trophy that you can see in front here. We want to thank the Badger Midget Auto Racing Association Board of Directors, its president, Quinn McCabe, and of course the entirety of the Badger General Membership for supporting this new Hall of Fame venture. We could just give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. We also want to thank Amy Schultz and the Badger Fan Club for organizing and producing today's event and providing such great decorations. We also want to thank the Interpark Board and promoter Greg McCarnes for allowing us to host today's event at such a historic facility that, with so much Badger history tied to it. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Hall of Fame nominating committee, and I invite each of these people to stand as I call their name. First will be Linda Bredesen. Linda's over here. Lauren Olson. Clare Rhone. Krueger. And we'd like to say a special thank you to Mr. Bill Bloomer for taking on the incredible task of writing the biographies for each and every inductee. Bill, we have a little gift, a token of appreciation for you for that as well. A little award for you. Thank you. Will you say anything? All right. So I'd also like to take a moment and personally thank the inductees and their families for attending today's event. We thank you for your commitment to the Badger Midget Auto Racing Association as well. The Wisconsin Racing Association was formed in 1936 in order to organize and promote the then new sport of midget auto racing. We all know this series today as the Badger Midget Auto Racing Association. 88 years wrapped up into such an incredible organization, made up of an incredibly talented, driven, and resourceful people. This organization has brought speed, creativity, triumph, and tragedy to those who have taken it on. Heroes and villains have been made, celebrated and despised. Fun has been had, tears have been shed, and at the end of the day, many gave their all just to be here. Today we celebrate the few, those who came first, those who won it all, and those who gave it all. Today we celebrate and honor the best among us, and we thank them for their lifetime of achievements. Now, I want to turn it over to our MC for today's ceremony, Mr. Eric Heenfeld, who is the Badger announcer. Sorry, I always mess that up. Thank you.
Every telemarketer on earth has messed it up too, my friend. Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. Good to see, boy, what a big crowd here today. This is awesome for the first ever Badger Hall of Fame induction. We've got 16 folks to get to. We'll introduce each one. We'll bring each inductee or members of the family up. We'll ask you questions, say a few words, and give you the justice that you deserve as far as your time here and your induction for you or your family. We got a lot to get through here today too, and this will be fun. We'll go in alphabetical order as far as last names of all 16. It's the easiest way to do it. So we'll start with our first inductee into the Badger Hall of Fame, one of the most recognizable names In midget racing history, often with his dad Don and crew chief Troy Richards by his side, Dan Boorse, 7-time Badger Midget Series champion, 2013 inductee into the National Midget Auto Racing Hall of Fame, 2-time Chili Bowl champion, all-time Badger Series winner with 81 feature wins, and 123 documented midget A-main wins in his career. He once said, "It was tougher to win a Badger championship than it was to win those 2 Chili Bowls." Ladies and gentlemen, your first inductee into the Badger Midget Hall of Fame, Dan Boorse. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame. I gotta ask it, I'll give you the microphone, but in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that your career would be that accomplished? 7 championships, 2 Chili Bowls, and everything else that you did?
Oh man, I really did not. You just put your head to the grindstone and win your first race, which takes a long time, and then after that it's just one race after another, and all of a sudden, wow, you're standing here and it's a memory.
Sure. You know, and I think of it as I was kind of standing here as Robbie was talking, just looking out the window at the Speedway itself, and for all that you've done and everything you've been part of, inducted in the National Hall of Fame, and now here too, to kind of bring it all together here at home, that's got to be pretty awesome for you as well, right?
Oh, it is. I'm so very honored and appreciate the voting me in this first inductee of the Badger Hall of Fame. This is where I dug my heels in. Where I have my grassroots, won my races. It was neat to get into the National Hall of Fame, but wow, this is back home. This is where it all happened.
Yeah. Anybody else you want to thank or kind of shout out here? So you got the moment, you got the microphone.
Well, yeah, I do have a few people to thank. I am bad at this, but how long do I have? No. I first want to thank Bill Bloomer again. I know we thanked him, but that's a lot to put 16 bios together, and thank you, Bill, again. At this level, racing, it's all about the thanks for family and friends. My sisters are here, my wife. She did so much for me, my family. Troy Richards, my crew chief, my good friend, he was always there for me, working on the car. Dan Bartell, he was with us for a couple championships. My friends that came with us in the bus. I want to thank my daughter Ann. She was, we had her a little late in my career, so she helped me quit. But I just want to thank so many people. My dad, of course, he was my hero. Good, bad, or ugly, he just stuck it in with me. My mom, she always watched Ann when we were at the racetrack. Let's see, I got only 6 more pages here. Let's see. My father-in-law, Kenny Weiland, of course, he had his parts sales. Of course, Vicky was always selling parts at the racetrack. That was kind of cool, so it was kind of a family affair. Just thanks so much. I hope they get the race in tonight, and I appreciate everybody here. Thank you.
He went through 6 pages pretty quick, didn't he? Our second inductee into the Badger Hall of Fame, Jim Fiscus. Jim raced in the latter days of the golden age of Wisconsin's modified ranks, and after becoming a Badger Midget owner, we hear he even raced a Badger Midget a time or two. He gave a fellow future Hall of Famer, the guy we just saw, Dan Boorse, a chance behind the wheel. This led to 2 championships for the pair. He took 2 more Badger crowns as an owner, one with Dean Erfurth and one with another person we're going to introduce later on as a Hall of Famer, Kevin Olson. His 2 sons, Randy and Aaron, got behind the wheel. At one point, wide open racing at 3 or 4 cars in the Angel Park pit area. Of course, they just had to push him a block or two down the road to get to the track, and they pushed him with their four-wheelers. During his time in Badger, Jim served on the BMARA Board of Directors. He was also a recipient of the club's prestigious Pat Stender Award for members who made outstanding contributions to midget racing. Welcome to the stage, Jim Fiscus. I'll come to you. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame induction. I mean, a lot of great memories, I'm sure, with Badger here at Angel Park and right here in your hometown, St. Prairie.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of a hometown. Why don't you ask me a question and I can answer it? Maybe.
As I say, this has just got to be such an incredible honor, and I'm sure there's a lot of, we've got a big table here, a lot of folks you'd like to thank for all those years too.
Yeah, it really is a wonderful thing. I'm sorry about that. I really, really appreciate the fact that everybody voted me in, because that's quite an honor.
Sure is. Congratulations, my friend, on your Hall of Fame induction. Jim Fiscus, ladies and gentlemen. Our next inductee into the Badger Hall of Fame, Bryan Gapinski. There's several people here that it's unfortunate they couldn't be here to be a part of it, and Bryan is most certainly one of them. He held many titles, but more than anything, Bryan was a guy that spread the great word of Badger and the Badger Midgets across the country. He dabbled in other forms of the sport. He was renowned for his coverage of midget racing. Past or present, he was the go-to guy if you want to know anything about midgets. Bryan was involved with midget racing for 40 years. This included owning cars driven by Dean Billings, among others. He also promoted the Dairyland Midget Racing Association, a club allowed steel block engines, helped keep racing affordable, never went against Badger. Many drivers were able to run both groups. As a media man for Badger, Bryan wanted people to wake up to the club's results on Monday morning, especially the Meet the Badger series at Angel Park on Sundays. Made it tough. Typing, faxing, dictation, all methods employed by Bryan, even in the infancy of the internet. He was famously slow with new technology. This meant staying up after the hour-long drive back to Milwaukee, and just like the drivers, after all that, he had to get to work in the morning too. From his frequent Badger reports in National Speed Sport News, among other publications, to his tending the National Midget Driver of the Year standings, Bryan Gapinski was the authority on midget racing in his day, and he was ours, most importantly. His passing in 2020 marked the end of an era for Badger Midgets. The club honors him every year with the Salute to Bryan Gapinski race. Each year, an award in his name, the Bryan Gapinski Media Award, every fall. At this time, I'd like to welcome the family of Bryan Gapinski to the stage, wife Jenna, children Kaylee and Tyler. Come on. I should mention, now that you did that and Dan did that, there are steps over here. It's slightly, there's like 2 more inches and it's slightly easier, but talking about, I wish, of all people, Bryan could see this history-wise, how proud and excited do you think he'd be about this particular day? There, we'll use the loud one and deafness over here. How would he feel?
He'd be really proud, would you mind? Bryan would be really humble, and he would be really appreciative of this honor. I had a couple of things I wanted to say, and of course technology runs in the family. Okay, here we go. So he would be really humble, he would be really appreciative of this, but he would also say, please don't make a fuss. Bryan was really a very private man, never liked to do anything for recognition, so he would do a lot of things behind the scenes, and we were really fortunate to see all of that. but he didn't expect recognition, nor did he want it. He came to the races here with his mom and dad, and that's where his love of midget racing and his love for Badger began. And he truly just wanted the best for this organization. He wanted Badger to succeed, he wanted the drivers to succeed, and he wanted the fans to have a good time. He wanted this to be around for generations to come so that other kids could come to the track and have those memories with their families. Oh gosh, Badger always came first. He did do a lot for midgets all over the country, but Badger was his home, and Angel Park was certainly very special to him. He'd also say that he would be very, very proud of this recognition, and he would be proud that his kids are here to see this. I think knowing that when you have a passion and you put a lot of hard work into it, you can make a difference to people. And all of these people love your dad and love what he did for them. I just pray that someday these kids can bring their children out to the track and relive those memories with their kids and tell them all about their dad.
Our next inductee is John Heisdrof. The most prolific Badger car owner of the 1970s. He's the only one to have won more than one Badger Owners Championship in that decade. In fact, he won 4 of them. In 1974 and 1978, his 2-car team dominated, finishing first and second in the year-end point standings. The famed red, white, and blue number 2 Sugar Babe and Sugar Daddy cars were always some of the best appearing cars on track. John also served on the Badger Board of Directors. Along the way, it was always a family affair. Heisdrof's crew usually included a number of his 11 children. Those who were not in the pits were likely in the stands with his wife Marcella, who was at every race. His love for racing was passed down to his many grandchildren, including 2003 Badger champion Davey Ray. In 1994, Heisdrof attended his last race, the Pepsi Nationals. He passed away just 2 months later. Accepting for her father, John Heisdrof, please welcome to the stage, Debbie Ray. Congratulations on the honor for your family. And family is a big aspect for you folks through the years, right?
Yes. Well, I don't even know where to start, but my mom was really by my dad's side through the all the years that he ran. And I have to make sure I mention my whole family. There's all 7 of my sisters, 8 including me here today. And my brothers were a big part of the family. They towed the race cars also to the track when we started running 2 cars. My sister Sam and I watched the race cars every Monday morning, 2 race cars every Monday morning. And the son-in-laws, Dave, my husband, Dave Ray, and Kenny Beardser, 2 of the champions. Bobby Baldwin's here today. And Johnny Hartwig's son is here today. So it was pretty cool having 4 different drivers and 4 different championships and finishing 1, 2. But I would also love to thank the whole Hall of Fame for the induction for my dad and everyone that made it possible tonight. It's an honor for sure, and Dad would want to thank everyone. So thank you.
Next inductee is Ron Hoettels, the father of the Sesco engine. He started building them out of his basement in the late 1960s. He went on to build a shop in the greater Milwaukee area and made a living from it. His power plants took the Badger Championship 4 times. In 2021, Ron again teamed up to move to California and seek a different type of glory, the Bonneville Salt Flats. Basically running the same Suzuki engine they ran on the Sun Prairie, they set the record in a rear-engine modified roadster with a run of 162 miles per hour. You can see several of Ron's engines on display in the American Museum of Speed to this day in Lincoln, Nebraska. At this time, on behalf of Ron Hoettels, we would like to welcome, I believe, if Fred Kirsch is here. Is Fred Baker, Robbie? Do we know? Okay. Bill Bloomer to accept the award. Ron Hoettels, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm sorry Fred couldn't make it. I've been in contact with Ron. First of all, let's all turn around and face that camera and go, "Hi, Ron." Ron should be watching today. I called him and he didn't have Facebook, but his wife did, and so hopefully they're watching. One cool thing about this whole room and how we're all interconnected. Ron owned the engine. Ron had the Sesco that was in Dave Ray. John Heisdrof owned Midget. That was his first one. Then Greg Nelson, his buddy that Eric alluded to, he won in that Suzuki green car that Nelson drove, one of the first cars I personally remember. That was a Ron Hoettels Sesco. Then Ron went on with Greg recently and won at the Bonneville Salt Flats. Dan Boorse won in the Sesco, won a championship. And then Dave Ray, John Heisdorf's grandson, won in the Sesco also. Ron was one of ours, and if you read his bio, he ends it with, I did some national stuff, but I was basically a Badger guy. And that's what I like to think of him. And, hopefully Ron's watching. Hopefully I did you justice, Ron.
Our next inductee is Billy Johnson. Before Billy became a Wisconsin icon known as the Cat, he was called the Kid. One of the early stars of Badger, Billy the Kid Johnson was a two-time champion of the Badger Midget Auto Racing Association, scored at least 78 A-main wins. He started his career racing nightly against fellow Badger Hall of Fame members Chet Morris, Landy Scott, and Melius. New familiar names would come later. Johnson eventually went on to become a star of the golden age of modified racing in Wisconsin. After Billy's passing in 1994, his ashes were spread across the start-finish line on the clay at Sheboygan County Fairgrounds in Plymouth. Today, his three great-grandsons, Hayden Johnson, Tristan Konings, and Jordan Miklas, all pilot open-wheel machines, and they are here to accept the award today. Please welcome the great-grandsons of Billy Johnson, here to accept the award. Want to flip a three-sided coin?
So racing on the same tracks as our great-grandpa holds a special meaning to us, even though we never got the chance to meet him. I think it's pretty cool to say, have you heard Billy the Cat Johnson? Whenever I'm talking to somebody who's asking me questions on dirt, and they'll always say how good he truly was. And when I say this, I know I'm probably talking for the both of us, or for all of us. But racing is more than just a sport to us. It's a tribute to a man we never met, but still have a deep connection with. As soon as that visor goes down on the helmet, we strive to be as best as Billy the Cat and keep the legacy going.
I'm going to keep it pretty short and sweet here. It's pretty sweet that we all race on the same tracks as our great-grandfather did. Our entire family does it. A lot of time and effort goes into it. We got huge shoes to fill, and I don't know, I think Jordan's feet look a lot bigger than mine. Mine are pretty small, so we'll see what happens, but that's about all I got to say about that.
just honored to race on the same tracks as him. I hope to be half the driver he was.
Our next inductee, Melius. One of the most recognizable names in all of Wisconsin racing history, Miles the Mouse Melius was a two-time Badger Midget champion before he rose to even greater fame in the Wisconsin modified ranks. Miles got to start racing, helping build cars and crew for old Bill Johnson and his son, the aforementioned Billy Johnson, in Slinger, Wisconsin in 1947. Melius finally grew restless being on the sidelines, talked to the elder Johnson about building a car. Driving for Bill Johnson in his rookie year, he went up against the likes of fellow Hall of Famers Landy Scott, Chet Morris, and the son of the car owner, Billy Johnson. Even so, he scored a win late in the season at Angel Park that year, launching a legendary racing career between midgets and modifieds. Two-time Badger Midget champion, dubbed the Mouse during his midget days, and the name stuck with him throughout his career. Miles Melius retired from racing in 1967, but remained a popular figure at southeastern Wisconsin tracks until his passing in 2019. He is also a member of the inaugural class of inductees of the Southeastern Wisconsin Short Track Hall of Fame. Accepting for Miles Melius, please welcome his son, Dick Melius.
Well, I wish he would be here today to accept this great honor. I was too young to really remember anything of the midget career that he had, but he told a lot of stories about the midgets. There was always a story about the Johnsons, old Bill as we refer to him, and one of his best friends in life and his biggest competitor in modified racing, Billy Johnson. So this would have been something he would have really appreciated being part of. As his career went on, he, as you've seen documented, went into modified racing. First with stocks and then to modifieds. Was very successful in that, retiring in '67 after 20 plus years of racing and many championships. And he was instrumental in talking Billy Johnson out of the midgets as well. Billy's dad, Bill, was afraid that he was going to get hurt again, and as it's documented, Billy got hurt a couple times real bad. So the first modified that Billy drove was one that my dad had built, and they became competitors thereafter. They're both into the Southeastern Wisconsin Short Track Hall of Fame, and I think between the two of them, they have probably more wins than almost everybody else put together because they were that good. So thank you very much for Badger, and we hope that this continues for a long time.
Our next inductee is Paul Krueger. He was an outboard boat racer as a youth who turned into a championship car owner as an adult, with fellow Hall of Famers Keith Thomas and Billy Wood, among others, behind the wheel. They campaigned the beautiful, dairy cool, and carry cool cars. They went on to become the Badger Midget Auto Racing Association Secretary, Treasurer, and President through the years. He's still at it today, wrenching on midgets he owns at Badger events. His knowledge and experience are such that he holds a lifetime position on the Badger board. Please welcome to the stage, Paul Krueger.
half the people in they talked about here, but you can read mine in the program. It's interesting to reflect on how race day has changed over the years. There was one time when the scene at Angel Park was so much different than it is now. Back in the day, we just were the only class of cars tearing up the track. Teams arrived with their race cars on open trailers, and all race cars pitted on the inside of the track. Women and children were not allowed in the pits during the races. The flag man stood right on the track, a position that now seems pretty dangerous. Our modern scoreboard and in-car transponders were non-existent, and timing was done with nothing more than a stopwatch and later on timing light. Race cars themselves have undergone remarkable changes over the time. Engines like the Ford V860, Ford Falcon, Chevy 2, somewhat similar to a magneto and fuel injection, to a four-cylinder production engines that we now have 148 cubic inch passenger car vehicles with no modifications that are improved electronic ignitions, the featured handbrake, levers, no mufflers, and in-out gearboxes right on the cockpit. Compared to now, being in the rear end, fuel tanks were pressurized by hand pumps and power steering was unheard of. Spring front end axles and lever arm shocks were standard, unlike the telescopic type shocks we use today. Materials and tires have also evolved. The aluminum body panels, tail, and nose that are defined in our cars have been replaced by carbon fiber components. Aluminum fuel tanks have given way to a much safer design, like using ladders and plastic shells. We use tires with ribs on the front and snow-type tires and standard trip tires on the rear. Changes to the axle and wheels with beadlocks and woodlocks, spring and rear axles and wheels are now to adjust wheel spacing on our safety features have seen the most dramatic improvements back when drivers relied on lap seat belts with a single left strap and wore hard hats like for helmets with goggles. Today's racers are protected with full face helmets, fireproof face suits, arm restraints, roll cages, mandated around 1969 to 70 have become a standard. Communication has advanced from signals to in-car radios to communication with drivers. Fuel was once stored in metal jerry cans. Now they use high-density polyethylene jugs for better safety and convenience. Despite all those changes, the important and hereafter things remain constant. Teamwork and camaraderie among racers, the time spent on the race car shop, and unwavering support of friends and family are integral of the sport as ever. It is great to be here to celebrate our rich history and to remember and honor the traditions that we have shaped our sport. As I have been looking at the picture over the past few weeks, old photographs and stats on the various accomplishments of the Daredevil racing team in the 1960s with our drivers, Bryan Gapinski, and Ron Hoettels. Honestly, I do not remember some of all the details and remember it all, but I can remember the fun times as well as the hours in the race car shot by Chief Auto Parts and the teamwork that led to our success. We are fortunate to have Daredevil as our sponsor and supporter from this. We have built a lifelong friendship and continue to thrive through the generations. I am honored to stand here with my family, daughter, Patty, and Pam, and son-in-laws, Larry and Randy Cook, a three-time Badger champion, my grandson Kyle and Zach. I'm also honored to bring the congratulations of Billy Woods, Keith Thomas, Owen Snyder, Kevin Olson, and all the other Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you for this tremendous honor.
Our next inductee is probably the one that we know the least about. Chet Morris. Daredevil Chet Morris, the next inductee into our Badger Hall of Fame. Chester Raymond Morris, or Chet the Daredevil Morris, as one publication identified him, hailed from the greater Milwaukee area and pursued the Badger Midget Association Trail in the 1940s. Believed to be the first and only black driver in Badger history, he's a very important part of not only Badger history, but Wisconsin racing history. Morris scored his first win in 1940, but for the war years and the years of his passing, he took a checkered flag at least once every season. On June 26, 1949, Morris became, unfortunately, the second driver to lose his life in a crash here at Angel Park Speedway. He left behind a wife, Ola May, an infant son, Chester Duane, and an unborn son, Steve. While he never knew his father, the driver's namesake holds a Catholic Mass for him every year on Morris's birthday on May 22nd. We're not able to get Chester here today, but Badger Media Rep Bill Bloomer will accept on behalf of Chet Morris and say a few words.
Thank you, Eric. Chet Morris's memory might have been lost had it not been for the likes of Olson and his book, Midgets of Wisconsin. Morris had a really good career. He wasn't a champion. As Lauren puts it, some of his best years were lost, and we don't actually have the records for him. But finding Chet Morris was a kind of cool story. You know, we got so many degrees of separation from each other, and you got the Heisdrofs and the Rays and the Boorses, and you got half this room is related to someone. When Chet Morris passed away out on the front straightaway in 1949, his family didn't keep in contact with Badger. So I had a friend of mine that, well, first of all, if I wanted to find any of you, I'd just call Quinn or Evie, and they'd get me to you people. No one knew where Chet Morris's family was, didn't know if they were alive. And a friend of mine, Craig Bursaw from town here, is a genealogist. I gave him the obit information, that's all I had on Chet. He came back, he had two names and the new married name of Ola May. And that was about it. I got that far, got to Facebook, and I could tell the boys if they were who we wanted weren't real active on Facebook. So by chance I was talking with Landy's son, Dan Scott, and I kind of mentioned this, and he says, well, you know what, I was an LA County Sheriff's Deputy Detective Supervisor for some years, and I'm retired, and, well, I got a guy. He knew a private investigator. Within 20 minutes, Dan calls me back, and he says, I've been on the phone with Chet Jr., and he couldn't be more thrilled to hear about this. In the subsequent days, I've spoken to Chet often. He and his brother are very excited about this. They're very proud of it. He couldn't tell me a thing about his dad. He said, Mom never talked about him. She had remarried. The boys had great lives, near as I can tell. I'm proud to say that one of Chet Morris's grandchildren works in defense, and the other one's a doctor. So they ended up okay. And on behalf of Chet Morris, who really wanted to be here, I'll accept the plaque in Chet Morris's honor, and we'll get it to the family. Thank you.
His sense of humor and his longevity helped make this champion a star both locally, nationally, and internationally. He grew up in Rockford, loved racing at a young age, and as soon as he was old enough, he started racing at Rockford Speedway, and I believe it was a road runner class. Later, he bought a Midget to race with the Badger Midgets, and the rest is history. This was the first step towards Kevin's life goal of racing in the Indianapolis 500. He never had the chance to race the Brickyard, but for the next 6 decades, he raced midgets at a high level, so much so that he made a career out of it. He was a 5-time Badger Midget Series champion. In all, KO scored 63 Badger wins, including the Hallmark Pepsi Nationals, which he was a 5-time winner. Over the years in Badger competition, Kevin won at tracks in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. KO's wit and communication skills earned him a spot as a radio reporter for the IMS radio network. He traveled with IndyCar to various tracks, doing interviews that included reporting duties of the Indianapolis 500 and NASCAR's Brickyard 400. KO won his last Badger Midget feature here at Angel Park at the age of 68. A sad day back in 2022 on February 11th when we lost Kevin from injuries sustained in a highway crash. KO was 70 years old. A few days later, on the frozen and snow-covered clay of Angel Park Speedway, longtime friend Ken Dahl waved the checkered flag over the hearse carrying KO's body. Hundreds of family and friends were on hand to cheer the champion's last lap. We'd like to welcome to the stage at this time the family of Kevin Olson to accept his Hall of Fame flag.
There's a lot of us hanging. Well, I know Dan joked about having 6 pages, but I in fact have 6 pages. So I think the question Phil said that I would be asked with was, what would your dad say if he was here? And I've actually contemplated that question over the last few years, and the truth is, I don't know what he would say. And that's the great thing about my dad, is you just never knew what he was going to say or do. I think he might have told me and my siblings, oh, this is no big deal if you're busy, don't worry about it. Then we'd get here and see it truly is a big deal, an honor and a privilege. I'm sure you all wish my dad was standing up here cracking a few jokes before acknowledging the people, places, and times that took him to where he will eternally stand in this sport. And as much as you all would like that, I would do anything to be sitting in a chair with you all, listening. Beaming with pride at whatever banter he had planned for us. And one thing I wish I would have told my dad more was how cool I thought he was. What a time and what a life, if these racetracks could talk. I'd imagine he'd thank Quinn, Amy, Linda, Bill, and whoever else played a role in making today happen. And when I spoke with Phil about today, he apologized for making an error in my dad's bio. Somehow an odd death year had been printed, and I'm thinking, oh, perfect, that'll match his fake birth year that I always say about. And I'm not sure why he lied about his age, maybe to stay young and relevant, or maybe deep down he had a fear of mortality or growing old. But that's the wonderful thing about days like today. It's stuff like this and people like you all that keep him alive, and I hope his legend lives on forever. You know, legend has it if you drive by Doris's real slow on a Sunday night around 2 a.m., you can still see the full moon on the roof. He would most likely go on to thank his heroes. I always knew if you were important if my dad introduced me to you. I remember one day in the pits, he called me over and said, I want you to meet won something like 52 wins here at Angel Park Speedway, which ranks him second to another household name of ours, Dan Boorse. There were names we all knew growing up, and they came with a trail of respect, whether we knew them or not. Billy Wood, Paul Krueger, and Dan Boorse, just to name a few. I think he would give special thank you to the late, great Lee Carey, and an extra special thanks to Greg Wilkie and the entire Wilkie family, to which his career would have never been possible. He might even name drop the doctor for always twisting those wrenches just right for a race day winning setup. And my personal gratitude goes to Donnie Clevin and the entire 9K crew who gave my dad a chance at that one last win. Also to Denny Lamers and the 66 car crew, especially during the season, the 1998 season, because those were some of the greatest times of my life. Then he'd shout out some of his dear friends who were along for the ride, like Dean Billings, Nick Gommert, Stan Fox, and Sleepy Trip, just to name a few. But rather than me trying to guess what he would say, I do, if the microphone will allow it and you don't get a bunch of reverb, I do have a sound clip to play where he could think, thank you himself. That's okay. You could hear that. But thank you all for everything.
Our next inductee is Clare Rhone. Claire's been part of the Badger Midget Racing Association for over 50 years. He started out as a crew member, he drove for a bit. With 3 young daughters at home, it was time to hang up that helmet, but he stuck with the club, working his way up to become a member of the Badger Board of Directors and Badger President. He has been a valuable resource, bringing insights to the club through his many different experiences. Even so, at the time of his induction into the Badger Hall of Fame, still active, holds a lifetime appointment to the Badger Board of Directors. Clare Rhone, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I've got too big a career in Badger Midget to even start that story down the line here. So I will start out by thanking the people that put this board together. Robbie Ray heading it up with a new idea here for Badger, and I know that a lot of people are going to appreciate this now and probably forever. So thanks to Robbie and the rest of the board, including myself, I guess. But we're going to try and go on with this thing forever. And if Badger stays in business forever, we'll be forever here too. Maybe not me, but somebody will be. Anyway, yeah, I was president for 3 years. Been on the board of directors almost forever in Badger. We went through a lot of strife and a lot of good and a lot of bad times in Badger. And finally, Robbie Ray, Mark Ray, they got together and figured out an engine rule that would save the people a lot of money, and it would give a big, a lot of help to get Badger back to what they used to be in power and strength in the midget business. And it's, I believe, a program that will stay together for a long, long time. Other clubs are starting to look at the engine rule, and the same thing as Badger with Mark Ray and Davey Ray helping design this new engine rule. They're taking it up in their clubs. So I believe that we're going to be a force in Badger, or a force in racing with midgets for a long, long time. I think we got USAC beat by a long way because we can race on the blue collar level and keep a lot of competitors in business. USAC, they kind of go by the way of corporate type racing where you got to have $1 million to buy your first race car, and that's not going to work forever in the economy that is around nowadays. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. It's been a real nice crowd. Seeing a lot of people here that we haven't seen, some people even forever at racetrack. I saw Steve Kinzer here. I mean, wow, this is getting off on the right steps. So give yourself all a hand for coming here and helping us out. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Landy Scott, a Badger Championship driver. Landy holds the Badger record of 6 wins in a row. He's one of the most innovative presidents of the Badger Midget Club. He was known as one of the 4 Musketeers with Kelly Peters and fellow Badger Hall of Famers in this inaugural class, Billy Johnson and Chet Morris. He typified the midget race for the 40s and the 50s. His beautifully restored number 17 Studebaker power plant is displayed to this day at the Southeastern Wisconsin Short Track Hall of Fame. As if knowing that one day the induction would come for himself and his peers, Landy was once quoted as saying, "A man is not dead as long as his name is spoken. We're only truly gone when we disappear from the memories of those who loved us." Today we welcome the family of Landy Scott to accept the award, and son, Tim Scott, will be accepted. I made an error. You can correct me. That's fine. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to, as a Scott family, I'd like to thank Badger for doing this. It's a great honor, and there's a lot of great drivers that raced in Badger and are still in it, so I really appreciate this. And I just want to start a little bit of how my dad got started. In 1939 and 41, my dad was a pit steward with Wally's Dale was a champion in Chicago in winter racing, and he was a very successful driver. That year, 41, November 30th, my dad got drafted. So that ended his racing career. But as soon as he busted out in 45, he took his $300 and bought his first midget. He started racing. Well, it was a $300 car. So it did run, he had some problems. One day a fellow came up to him and said, "You look like you need some help." He said, "Boy, I sure do." The guy came in, sat down for about a half hour, looked at it. He went out and won his first heat. He was so happy. The guy, he looked up, and the guy said, "If you race for me, I'll help you this year. If you race for me next year, I'll build you a brand new car." So that fellow's name was George Welch. He did build him a new race car, and that's where the Studebaker came. He put a Studebaker in just what my dad raced all the rest of his life, and the number 17. So that's how his car became that. And in 1948, on June 21st, his birthday, he was burnt here at Angel Park, 40% of his body. The radiator was broke. And he was told he can't race for a while. Well, that was in June. In July, 2nd and 4th day of racing, he came to the race. The crew had to take the steering wheel off, set him in a car, put the steering wheel back, and he stayed in the car until the racing was over. And they had to reverse that. He just loved racing. Then in 1960, Don McGaw and Jim Maloney bought a car, and Landy Scott driving it, and that was the number 17 also. And then from 51 to 59 to 59, Landy was the president of Badger for those years, and he really loved doing that and going out and promoting and talking to the promoters and trying to get tracks for Badger to race on. Meanwhile, McGaw, my dad quit racing for him because he bought his own car. Then, in the meantime, McGaw got Ron Hoettels to drive the number 17. But this happened a couple times with the 17. The curse struck, and Ron Hoettels flipped the car and went out of the fence here at Angel Park. And he was hurt, but not real bad. The car sat idle for a few years, and then in 55, when Boyd, Connick, and Landy Scott bought the car, and they had a successful career into the 60s and that. Going through his record, he always placed within the top 10 of the Badger points. In 1961, Landy decided to retire and go up north and build a cottage, which he did, and along with that cottage, he built Fritzie Kuttner's cottage right next to his. So there was a racing connection right there. Fritzie would bring the race car up there at times for racing. In 1997, Landy was reunited with the 17 for his 50th championship anniversary for Badger at Angel Park Speedway. At a young age of 77, he took it around, he must have went around 3-4 times around the track. Not too fast, but he was having fun. The smile on his face lit up the stands. After Landy retired, we kind of lost track of the car and tried to track it down. Then in 2008, the Scott family found a car and bought it and brought it back to Landy. And when he brought it back to him, it was on Father's Day. So it was appropriate. They woke him up in the morning and said, "Hey, come out outside, we got something for you." Here was a 17 on the trailer. It spent a couple years in California at car shows. My brother Dan, who lives out there, shows cars. So he would tow the midget and they put him in the classes for the car shows for that. In 2014, the Scott family loaned the car to the Studebaker Museum in Indiana. And it was there for 10 years because it was a Studebaker course. And their main was Studebaker. So it sat there for those years. Then they got some other cars and they run out of space, so they wanted to know what to do with the car. Well, then the family loaned the car to the Hartford Museum. The car is there right now. And along with that car, there is the Ernie Fredericks number 50 Roadster that he built. He built it in 75. And also the rear engine Evernood powered midget number 8. Those three cars, midgets, are sitting right side by side at the museum, and along with all the sprint cars and stock cars and all. It's really quite a nice display they have. And then I also want to mention that if you want to find anything about Landy Scott, his racing and all the other racing, he mentions Miles Melius, Kelly Peters, because they used to race together in a double-decker trailer. there, and if you go to YouTube and go under Landy Scott, you'll see a whole thing. There's movies and all kinds of stuff in there. And then also I want to mention that in the 50s and 60s, his wife, my mother, Dorothy, would write the results of the Sunday night show here and send them in to the Milwaukee Sentinel. And so they would publish it. So from the 50s and 60s, she was doing that. A lot of the articles in the scrapbook that's on the site are articles that she wrote for everybody. And all the people during that era, they were super close family. I can't tell you how many our cottage and things like this. So it's really a great organization here, and it continues to be. And I'm so happy that they're doing this, and I hope they keep on doing this for quite a long time. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Owen Snyder. One of the more storied drivers in Badger history, Owen's records can be hard to track. He drove in a day where running under assumed names was common, so you'll find Todd Barton of Vinton, Iowa in the official championship midget racing handbook, but readers will find no record tying the real man behind the statistics. We know he had at least 53 Badger wins and 2 titles. One Badger publication actually credited him with the 3rd title, the 1967 crown, but because he ran the newly allowed Offenheiser engine, he and all other Milwaukee drivers were excluded from the points. All these honors were really earned by Owen Snyder, who passed away in 2018. He left a legacy of motorsports. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome here to the stage the family of Owen Snyder.
Thank you. I hope I don't shake too much. We are just so happy, proud, and honored of this presentation, the inaugural presentation, Hall of Fame. I know he's smiling right now. I want to really reach out and thank Badger Midgets and the board that put this together. Food was pretty good. I mean, it was good. Just great to see everybody. And the first thing I'd really like to do is introduce the family that we have up here, kind of all involved in racing. Owen the third, worked on Indy cars for 40 years. Brother Todd Barton, he says, Snyder, Joel Snyder, sister Dana Snyder, Kinzer, and I hate to say the most famous of us, Steve Kinzer, her husband, who kind of knows a thing about Hall of Fames and wins and stuff. But really, most importantly, is the owning side of the car that really made Dad look good. Walter Whitehorse, and the chief automotive proprietor, and Kenny Whitehorse. So great to have him. I mean, he's seen it all. Walter has seen it all. So I think just a quick history of Pops. He grew up on a dairy farm in Footville, Wisconsin, and delivered the milk. I think that's probably where he learned how to drive. I mean, 10, 11 years old, he was delivering the milk to all the farms, and he liked speed. I guess he wanted to get his milk delivered and mess around the rest of the day, but that's where he started. And fast forward, I don't know how he ended up with my mom, Helen Whitehorse, and Walter and Harry and Uncle David. They got hooked up together, and man, they did a lot of racing over the country. And he was working at the Chevrolet assembly plant in Janesville. Started in the, I think, early 50s, and started working his way up. And around 1960, I think GM kind of had enough. He'd come into work, and it looked like he'd been fighting all weekend. All beat up, blue, black eyes, just everything from racing. Maybe the racetrack wasn't as nice back then, or had a lot of rocks in it or something. But this isn't the only track he raced at. Anyways, all his bosses, supervisors told him, hey, you gotta stop racing. You can't go on like this. And okay, yeah, I'll stop racing. Well, that was easy. He just changed his name. They were driving, as the story goes, I think it's probably the truth, that's what all of us grew up hearing. They were driving to a race, I believe in Davenport, Iowa. And they were driving through Iowa, and he saw this billboard, this dentist in Vinton, Iowa, Todd Barton. And somehow it just clicked. And from, I want to say 1960 or 61, probably 61, he started racing under Todd Barton from Vinton, Iowa. So, yeah, he appeased the bosses, but everybody he worked with knew he was still racing. Went on to win a couple championships and races, and man, he loved racing up till he retired. 48 years at that assembly plant, GM. That's unheard of in this day and age. But it was kind of easy for him after he retired. He still had a lot of racing to do. It was with his son-in-law, Steve, who 100 races a year. I think Pops went to quite a few of them. And then later on, when I maybe got moved up and crew chief and whatnot on the different IndyCar teams, he'd come to IndyCar races. So racing was in his blood his whole life. I mean, he woke up every morning to go racing, go IndyCar racing, World of Outlaws, just anything that was out there running. So he actually was pretty cool. He actually worked with me on some IndyCar teams. He was the signboard guy for 2 winning Indy 500 teams, Al Unser Jr. He was a signboard guy, and Eddie Cheever. So he was pretty heavily involved, and like I say, he just enjoyed it. To go with Dana and Steve, and just travel the country, and racing was everything. Racing was everything. So this means a lot, and like I say, to be recognized and in the inaugural Hall of Fame for Badger Midgets, and that means a lot to all of us. And like I say, Uncle Walter, he gave him some pretty good race cars. Man, those black number 98 cars, they were pretty good. They were pretty good. So we thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Our next inductee in the Badger Hall of Fame is Pat Stender. Pat is believed to be the first member of the Badger Association Board of Directors. In 1987, Pat was elected to be the club's president and served in that capacity for 4 terms. To date, she is the only woman to hold that position. Pat Stender was born into a racing family with her father, Bill Lillison, being a very well-known builder and owner of midgets in racing's early years out of the Milwaukee area. She got her start in the sport as a scorer for USAC. As a keeper of the back-gated Angel Park Speedway, she was the first Badger official drivers saw when they arrived at the track. Stender's warm personality, coupled with her ability to remember a person's name, made everyone who checked in feel welcome. At the end of the night, she was there to greet them again at the pay window. Remember the pay window? In 1992, she was diagnosed with cancer, given just 6 months to live. Still, she loved watching Badger midgets at Angel Park. So her daughter, Deborah Paulson, would drive her to the track. As Pat was too weak to walk in the stands, they would simply sit in the car and watch the action. On June 21st, Pat planned to attend the races, but was too ill to go. The next day, Pat passed away at the age of 60. Every year since 1993, the Badger Midget Series banquet has awarded the Pat Stender Award, presented to the person who has made outstanding contributions to midget auto racing. Fellow members of the inaugural class of the Badger Hall of Fame who have been bestowed the honor include Paul Krueger, Clare Rhone, Jim Fiscus, Bryan Gapinski, and one of her favorite drivers, Kevin Olson. Receiving Pat Stender's plaque on her behalf, please welcome Pat's children, Paul Stender and Deborah Paulson.
First off, I'd like to thank Robbie Reed for coming up to the Badger Hall of Fame and all the help he had doing it. I think it was a great idea. Of course, we have the National Hall of Fame, but to have a Badger Hall of Fame and my mother actually making the first cut of 16 out of the thousands of Badger members over the years is pretty impressive, I think, and kind of feel special about that. My mother was really cool. I mean, she grew up in a racing family, of course. My grandfather, Bill Wilson. In fact, Owen Snyder's dad actually drove my grandfather back in the day. Kind of a neat little tie-in there. But you know, my grandfather was a pretty neat guy too. He built his own engines, built his own cars. And when I say built his own engine, he bought parts from the catalog. He cast the blocks, cast all the parts, made the crankshaft, did everything. We had a 6-cylinder Offenhouse replica engine that he ran, which is a pretty rare piece. Just, you know, all around super machinist before the days of CNC. He did everything by hand back then. And my mother was really neat. She would come to, I remember being in first grade, my sister was a couple years ahead of me. She'd come to school, drag us out on a Thursday and take us all over the country, you know, to watch, she'd call them big cars. She scored for USAC and scored for IndyCar for USAC back in the day. And we would go to, you know, race with the Coin, go to Springfield, go to Michigan National Speedway. I don't remember how many times. I mean, the first Indy 500 I think I ever went to that I remember was probably when Al Sr. won with the Giant Lightning car, and for some reason I have Giant Lightning cars in my collection forever after that. But it was kind of a neat life. She always would take us somewhere, like a museum or a museum, like even a factory tour before we went to the race. So it was kind of like a home school thing we did when we were kids. It was really a neat experience. And it was a really neat life. And when we started going to Badger, she introduced me to Kevin, to Stanley, to the Ford family, you know, later to the Stryker family and Rich Vogler, of course, which I hung around with for a lot of years. So I really got to hang around midgets and stuff like that. And I started driving, of course. Believe it or not, somehow I had a winning feature here where Kevin dropped out, but it was a kind of neat experience. I think she was really proud of that. Probably happy that I probably wasn't racing anymore because I had some pretty spectacular things that I managed to do here, like flip down the entire front straightaway and pop mine out of my head. And she's probably happy I'm not doing that. I'm not quite sure what she thinks about me racing 300-mile jet cars and monster trucks now, but you know, it was a little different back then. So that's kind of a funny story too. Her favorite driver was always Lloyd Woodman, but once I just remember her mentioning that A.J. Floyd could park his boots and he's at any time, which I thought was kind of funny.
I don't really know what to say, but I do want to say that she loved everybody here. I mean, she was moms to, I think, most of you guys out there. And I remember, you know, she worked that back pit gate, stamped your hand, put your little, yeah, that's right. And then she would be there ready to pay you out at the end of the night. And also when she was president there, or even being on the board of directors, trying to keep the peace among the boys. So anyway, we're really honored to have her be part of this in the initial introduction here. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Only a couple more inductees to go here today, so it's been a lot of fun. Our next inductee into the Badger Hall of Fame, Keith Thomas. For 22 years, Keith Thomas was a regular on the Badger Midget Trail. Keith scored 35 wins and holds 3 championships with the club. He was also a member of the Badger Board of Directors and an innovator in the sport. He won those 3 Badger championships with fellow Hall of Famer Paul Krueger. His last win came in the last race he ever ran in a car he built in Shawano. Thanks to his occupation in the fiberglass and stainless tank industry, Thomas was an expert in fiberglass molding. To supplement his racing, he fashioned nose cones, tail tanks, and hoods for midgets that were sold to other teams as well. Keith Thomas, who went on to become a very successful businessman in his own right, was said to seldom speak of his business prowess. Rather, if he was to engage in conversation, it was more than likely about racing. Keith passed away with his family by his side at the age of 91, 2 years ago in 2022. Accepting for Keith Thomas, Darren Thomas.
Wow, it's great to be here. Let me just say thank you to Badger Midget for recognizing and honoring our father in this way. I'm Darren Thomas. I'm the youngest Thomas. My much older brother is back there. So the other thing I want to just say is, wow, being in this building is unbelievable. It brings back memories for those of you that are with us today that grew up at this racetrack in your formidable years. This is hallowed ground, just kind of being around here. And I kind of remember, if me and my brother weren't getting into trouble in this building, we were over at the park just across the way. So this is really a very special place to the Thomas family. So you mentioned Keith Thomas. If you know your Badger history, Keith Thomas showed up here at the ripe old age of 20 years old in 1950. And he thought it was a bright idea to jump inside one of these things called midget race cars. And for 22 years, he raced Badger midgets here, principally at Angel Park and other places around the country. And so if you know your history, you know Keith Thomas as a race car driver. One of the things that Keith Thomas also was is he was a serial entrepreneur. I mean, that guy was involved in more businesses than you could shake a stick at. Everything from a gas station in downtown Madison to building a boat company up in DeForest that ultimately got smushed together with inland boats. He worked for Paul Krueger's father when he was young, and he went on to have a successful career at Dairy Equipment Company. And Dairy Equipment Company was the primary sponsor for Paul's cars, the Dairy Cool cars. And then in 1972, he hung up his helmet and he moved to Tomahawk, Wisconsin, and started a company called Northland Stainless. That company still exists today, and it is one of the largest employers of that community. But you mentioned about the fact that he spent a lot of his career post-racing in the business world, and I think about the connection between Keith Thomas, the race car driver, and Keith Thomas, the serial entrepreneur. And really it boiled down to the fact that he learned some things here at the University of Badger Midget Racing, studying here at the campus on Angel Park for 22 years. And he learned courage, he learned commitment, he learned hard work, he learned perseverance. And his business life and his racing life were umbilically connected because of the foundation that was built while he was here in Angel Park. And so when you talk to him in his later years, people would want to talk to him about his business, but you know what? He didn't care. He cared about this place, he cared about this racing. And of course, I feel like I'm standing here preaching to the choir. You all know that this place is great, it has had an impact. This association has an impact that is profound, and it has staying power. And all of you are a part of that, and hopefully that will continue well into the future. So thank you on behalf of the Thomas family. This is really great.
Got a couple of these special appreciation awards. We did one earlier for Bill Bloomer and all his work he has done with the club with this event today. We've got another special appreciation award, and I hope this person's in the building. Here, Robbie, can you see him? Looking. All right. If you're in here, Heather Jurgen, please come to the stage, please. Special appreciation award courtesy of Badger. And here, there, and yonder, trying to beg a catcher. It's getting that time there. It's the business time. But, there she comes. Give Heather a big hand. Special appreciation. Thank you for all you have done and do. Inductee today for the inaugural class of the BMARA Hall of Fame, Billy Wood. Billy started his career in 1953, going up against fellow Hall of Famers Billy Johnson and Landy Scott. Keith Thomas was added to that mix within a couple of years. Billy took the last of his record 8 Badger titles over Billy Englehart and Thomas. Billy Wood had 77 Badger feature wins, 52 of them here at Angel Park Speedway. Billy Wood, perhaps the greatest Badger midget driver of all time, to be found socializing with other retired drivers for years after he was done behind the wheel. Billy passed away in 2007 at the age of 79. Here to accept, on behalf of Billy Wood, please welcome his 3 sons, Tom, Jerry, and B.G. Wood.
Thank you, B.G., Jerry, Ron, Tom. Really want to thank Badger for doing this. If my dad was here, he would be so humble. He's probably got a connection, probably to, of the 16 here, probably at least 11. And one of the things that's so good about this is the racing family. You go down the list, and I have a connection personally probably with 8 of the inductees, and just wanted to kind of say a little bit, we all have differences, where we came from, but on race day, we were here to watch races. But coming from Kenosha, we always had to leave about 2 o'clock to get here. If there were clouds in the sky, Dad was nervous the whole way. But sometimes we came early, and just over the parking lot, there used to be a beautiful pool, a high dive, and we got to do that maybe once a year. But even more important, there was probably a Korean War turbojet there that probably every one of us played on at one point. And Mom didn't have too many rules at Angel Park because it was fenced in, but her rule was we had to watch Dad when he was on the track. And what that meant is if you were on top of that turbojet and he got pushed off, you had to be there when he took the green flag for qualifying. Now that was pretty easy when he was driving the Paul Krueger Falcon, because it was he and Terry Vaughn were the only 2 that had that car. But when he got into the Paul Krueger 81 with the Chevy 2, you had to worry because it was either the White Horse 98 or the 81, and you could not tell them the difference because they basically, the front wheels came off the ground when they got pushed off because they were going flat out, and by the time they pushed them off in the turn 4 to when you took the green flag, it was about 16 seconds, well, probably 17 because of the push truck, but you had to be watching by that time. He's very proud of Badger. When I think of Angel Park and Sun Prairie, to me they're the same. There is no Sun Prairie without Angel Park, and hopefully it'll be like that forever. One of the things that I remember about my dad that nobody else did is when he won a race, he kind of came down really slow to the flag man, grabbed the flag, checker flag with his left hand, transferred it to the right, hit the gas, and was going full speed towards the wall in turn 1, and then he would spray everybody in the pavilion with dirt, and that was a constant. Really, two of the races I remember is probably the best race. We all have to remember that in that day, the fastest qualifiers were in the back of the pack. So 24 starters in the feature, 23 and 24 were the 1 and 2 fastest qualifiers. And a lot of times, by the time they were coming out of the second turn, they were maybe 4th or 5th. Not many people rode the wall in turns 1 and 2, but a lot of those cars seems to. Todd Barton, Billy Wood, and a few others. So the best race was, actually it was the 81 and the white 18, Mel Cornett. There was a 50 lapper, there was no track record because there was one caution at about probably the 5th lap, and they were nose to tail for the next 45 laps. So that was the other great race that I remember. And again, a lot of people didn't know that my dad would occasionally cheat. Maybe some of you drivers think he did all the time, but that's not true. So I thought it was kind of a hot shot before the race, and I kept challenging my dad to a running race. And he kept promising someday he would do this. And of course, the 81 was parked on turn 4. We came across the track all muddy. I was 10 years old trying to slop through that stuff. And he said, "Do you want to do that race now?" And I started trying to get my feet clean. I said, "Well, yeah, I can do that." So, back in the day, he had his race bag, he had his little blue suit on, race bag, helmet over here, Pepsi, and walking, and he goes, "Well, where do you want to race to?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to race to the car." And so he goes, "Well, when do you want to start?" And when he said that, he was already 20 feet ahead of me. And of course, I caught him just about at the time, they had the dirt across going to the back stretch. And then he stopped. He goes, "Race is over. I win." And I go, "Well, I remember that. You always have to get ahead and always think ahead." And but if he were here now, he'd be so proud and he'd be so happy seeing everybody here. This is a tremendous reunion and an honor for our family. Thank you.
Is there anything I've forgotten, Robbie? Amy might have something in before we disperse. Would you like to speak for a second? Can I include it in what? I'm not concluded yet. Great.
After Eric concludes our ceremony, we're going to do, come to the front table if you want to buy some more raffle tickets or 50-50 tickets. I have flags up here that we will take down for all of our inductees, and they get to take those home. I also have boxes for all of your awards, and when we are done, we will actually add all your names to the trophy. So I want to thank everybody for coming. What a great turnout. And I'm hoping we get the races in tonight because it's going to be a beautiful night for racing. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Amy. Thank all of you for coming out today. This has been an awesome event. Can't wait to do it for years to come. I think everybody else has said pretty much everything that needs to be said. So thank you for your attendance. Enjoy your day and your night here as well.